What is going on, wrestling fans? It is I, Steve. On today's edition of 10 Count, I'm talking to one of my favorite referees of all time. It's Jimmy Korderas. How are you doing today?
Well, since I'm one of your favorites, I'm doing great now. How are you, Steve? Thanks for having me on, buddy.
Of course. Now, you have done so much in the wrestling business, but let's start from the beginning. How did you get into the wrestling business? Because when you came in, it felt like it was so much harder to break into this bubble.
No, it was because it wasn't such an open door like it is now. Well, as far as the information,
Yeah.
it was kind of like a closed business. It was kind of kept tight and, didn't let too many secrets out, so to speak. The peek behind the curtain was very rare. And I was a huge fan here growing up here in Toronto. We got a lot of wrestling on TV. We got so many different territories. We got Mid Atlantic. We had AWA. We had, the old WWF from, on but all syndicated shows.
Yeah.
Maple Leaf Wrestling, of course, the Tunnies, famous here in Toronto,
Of course.
and stuff like that. So I was a huge fan growing up. And when I was old enough to be able to go down and drive down by myself, I would go down. I'd go and take pictures because I'd get like ringside seats, and I'd be close enough where I can get some good shots. And I'd come back to the next show, sell those pictures to fans outside, to fuel my wrestling habit, kind of help pay for it. And one day I got caught by a guy that worked for Jack Tunney. He took all the pictures for the promotion and for their magazine slash a program for the shows. He goes, "Hey, can I see your pictures?" I said, "Sure, here you go." He says, "Oh, how much are they?" I said, "They're $2 a pop, unless you want, like 3 for $5 or something like that." I was going, I was trying to do
Yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah.
So he says, "Oh, that's cool, but you can't do that. It's illegal." I said, Why? Who are you?" He told me who he was, and I was like, "Oh." He says, "But you know what? Yeah, you seem like an okay guy, maybe you can help me out. Maybe I can get you to help me take pictures and stuff like that." And I said, "Oh, cool." So he went and talked to Jack, and he says, Jack says, "We don't need another photographer, but he wants to meet you." So I met Jack and stuff like that. He says, "Look, uh, we'll find something for you to do." And, starting off as the gopher, so to speak.
Yeah.
"Hey, I need one of these. Go get these. Here are the keys to my car. Go pick up so and so at the airport." That kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So it started to progress into getting to know, and then eventually I was allowed backstage
Oh, yeah.
to hang. And so I got an idea and became uh, friends with Pat Patterson.
Wow. Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's a journey, and they could have gone really sour quick outside selling pictures.
Mhm. Yes, it could have been a very different story. Let's put it that
Yeah,
way.
luckily you have a nice personality, because that could have gone like, "Oh, give me those pictures. Stop taking them. Get out of here, kid."
Mhm.
And then it's like, boop, it's over. But here we are now, so many years later. Now, eventually you do become, a referee. Now, how does that
Mhm.
transition from golfer to referee?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned earlier that I became friends with Pat Patterson, and Pat is a big joker and likes to have fun kind of guy. So, we they would run Maple Leaf Gardens every 3 weeks here in Toronto,
Hmm.
and on Mondays in Brantford, Ontario, which is about maybe a little over an hour away from Toronto, they would do their wrestling challenge tapings.
Okay.
See, every 3 weeks it was Superstars of Wrestling in Poughkeepsie, New York, and then Wrestling Challenge in Brampton, Ontario, after doing Maple Leaf Gardens. So I got to know Pat because I would drive talent back and forth from Toronto to Brantford and stuff like that. And Pat says to Jack one day, he says, "Hey, we got the kid here. He does all this stuff for us. During the show, he waits around until the show ends so he can start doing, taking the talent back to the hotel and stuff like that." He says, "Why don't we use him? Why don't we make him a referee so we can use him during the show?" And Jack says to Pat, "Do we want to smarten the kid up?" And Pat goes, "He's been in the locker room with the boys for the last year and a half now. He's kind of knows what's going on." So then Pat says, "Go get yourself black sneakers, black pants, a blue shirt, and a black bow tie. Carry it with you at all times." And I was like, "Okay, cool." But I didn't know enough to ask questions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then one day at a spot show here in Ontario, in Newmarket, Ontario, Chief J Strongbow, who real good dude, it was the road agent. He says, "Jimmy Jan, you got your referee gear with you?" And I said, "Yes, I do, Chief." He says, "Put it on, you're reffing tonight." And I didn't want to tell him, but I don't know what I'm doing.
Right, right, right. Of
He
course.
says, "You're reffing the match with SD Jones against the Red Demon, who was Jose Luis Rivera." So I said, okay. He says, get with them. So I got with them, and I was good buddies with SD. And I said, SD, I'm reffing your match tonight. He says, oh, cool. I said, I don't know. He says, stick with me. I'll talk you through it. So he talked me through it. And he said, and after the match, he just said, you know what? Get with the other refs, ask them questions, get them to tell you, and yeah, it started there.
Wow. Wow. That's so funny because, yeah, you are afraid probably to ask a couple questions because suddenly something like, wait, what are you doing in this position if you don't know what you're doing? And then obviously here we are now today, but eventually you do continue on with the WWF at the time. What are your first impressions? Because that's like a circus. You have the Hogans, the Warriors, the Demolitions, so many superstars when you started out. But what was that first impression like?
It was amazing because, you saw these people on television, like the Hulk Hogan's, like the Andre the Giants, all these legends, all these icons. And now you're in the ring, working with them, you know, I wish I could put it into specific words, but it's incredible, especially being a fan growing up and loving the business and not being one of these guys who was like, yeah, I'm going to grow up and be a wrestler. I'm going to grow up and be in the wrestling business, stuff like that. I was just a huge, huge fan who loved it, who was blessed and fortunate enough to be in the right circumstance at the right time to get into a business that I enjoyed and loved.
Wow. That's amazing to hear because, yes, I feel like I feel the same way as a child. You see the Rick the Model Martels with these giant muscles or Jake the Snake, and you're like, I can't do this, but I want to figure out how to get into this world. And I've slowly crept in, but I was not there where you are now in today's world. But again, working for the WWF, what was your relationship like with Vince McMahon? 22 years working there, you must have at least had a few conversations.
Oh, a few conversations, but Vince has this persona. You know what I mean? Like everybody, is very intimidating kind of look about it. He looks like he's the guy in charge. When he's busy, he's busy. That's the thing, and you can kind of tell when he is. He's got this kind of look about him where it's okay, I'm in busy mode. But uh, it was very hit and miss when Mr. McMahon. I always call him Mr. McMahon. He said, "Yeah, pal." He said, have you got a minute? And he was always very okay, but still, he just had that aura about him of being, oh wow. I was a little bit intimidated. I remember, just to give you an example, how much fun he could be at times too. Do you remember the days way back when of the Federettes?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So there was the unwritten rule. There was no fraternizing with the Federettes. They were off limits. Blah blah blah. So we were at a TV taping. I want to say it was somewhere in California or something like that. And after the show was over, we're back at the TV hotel. There was a nice little bar there where they had music and dancing. And I wasn't fraternizing. I was just, I was into dance music back in the day. I like to dance. So I was out there dancing with a couple of the girls, and it was just me and a couple of the girls out there on the dance floor. And Vince walks into the bar, and he looks, and he does that Vince walk over, and I went, oh boy, I've had it now. He says, what are you doing, pal? I said, just dancing, Vince. He said, dancing? You call that dancing? That ain't dancing. This is dancing. And he gets out there and he starts doing his thing. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not in trouble.
Oh my God. Again, it feels like all your stories end with this could go totally the wrong way.
Yeah, it's because in my mind I'm thinking this can't be real. This unreal life that I've fallen into and gotten to be a part of and was blessed to be a part of. It can't be real. It's got to end someday. And you can't do it forever, obviously. But at the same time, man, like I said, I've been blessed.
My God, that sounds amazing. The fact that he walks up to you and you're thinking, I'm in deep, deep trouble here. And he's like, what are you doing? That's not dancing. And he just starts dancing around. That's amazing. That's a great story. I love that story so much. Thank you for sharing that one.
Oh, no.
But you've worked in so many eras of the WWF. There's the Golden, the New Generation, the Attitude, Ruthless Aggression. What do you have a particular wrestler from those eras that you like to work with more than most? Because again, Hogan, Cena, everybody underneath the sun, Rock, Austin. Is there someone that you saw your name next to in a match? You're like, yes, I can't wait to do this.
Oh, where do I begin? I mean, like you said, there was an era through all those eras. You know what I mean? I loved working with guys like Mr. Perfect. I liked working with guys like uh, obviously Steve Austin, John Cena, the Rock. Eddie Guerrero was just a special talent. I loved working with him and Rey Mysterio, and especially Eddie when he did. Uh, you know what? Maybe I will. I'll pick Eddie because you know, as you can see on the
I
background
see the
here.
picture back there.
Yeah, that's a you know, Eddie and I had a special relationship, and yeah, so I had a small, tiny little hand in bringing those four guys over from WCW back in the day. There was a wrestling program up here called um, oh my goodness, I can't remember the name, but Jeff Merrick was they had a wrestling show up here in Canada. They were big things, and he calls me one day and he says, "Hey Jimmy, do you think the WWE would be interested in four guys from WCW that want to leave?" And it was back then rumored that you know, Eddie, Chris, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn wanted to leave. I said, I can't tell you for sure if there's interest, but I could find out. So I called Michael Hayes, who was working for the office at the time. I said, Michael, would there be interest? He says, oh, of course there is. Have your buddy call me. So you know, I relayed the message, and next thing you know, there they go. So I was kind of like a help transition, anyways,
Of
make the
course.
connection, so to speak. So I like taking a little bit of credit, anyways.
Take it. Take it. Without that phone call to
But
you, there is no phone call to Doc Hendricks, you know,
yeah,
Mike Blaze. So
but to answer your question, man, I loved working with Eddie, and one of the things he helped me do too is to, you know, they'd be going over a match and I'd be listening to it, and he'd see and he'd look over. He goes, "Okay, what's going on?" I said, "What?" He says, "I could see something popped in your head, an idea." I said, "Yeah, but it's your match. I don't." No, 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 no. You go ahead. You're part of this match too. He made me. You know what I mean?
yeah,
He made me feel well. So every once in a while, I'd throw out an idea, and a couple of times it got used, and it was like, you know, I felt like I was contributing more than just being you know, a part of a match, helping them tell their story, which is what a referee does.
right,
He
right.
helps the talent tell their story. You're not the story.
So with Eddie Guerrero being able to see your mind working in front of you, are other wrestlers not open to ideas from a professional referee like yourself, or they're just some people are very open to the idea and some are like, don't even talk to me?
No, I guess there's some, but at the same time, you know, some of them don't even bother asking the ref. But there
Mm,
are some that, you know, say, you know, we don't want to bury the ref in this situation. So, hey, what can you be doing here? Or how can we do this, or something like along those lines? You know what I mean?
yeah. Because I know over the years it felt like when I was growing up watching wrestling, it felt like referees, their names were part of the character. You know, Jimmy Korderas, you know, Mike Chioda, Earl Hebner. These names were brought up on commentary as you were part of the show, even the timekeeper. Like there was an element to that. And eventually it felt like they just stopped saying your names on
Mhm.
purpose, maybe because it was a distraction from the superstars in the ring. Did you notice that transition from, hey, I'm being talked about, to just do your job and count to three?
Now that happened after I was gone from
Okay.
WWE. So
2009.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you know, watching it, and then all of a sudden, you know, I notice anyways, little things like that where,
Yeah.
hey, they're not mentioning the referees, they're not even kind of alluding to them. Just, oh, there's a you know, distraction of the ref,
Right,
kind of
right,
like,
right, right, right.
and not naming them, and I was like, that's a little bit of a disservice. I mean, even in all sports, you know, whether you watch hockey, you watch basketball, UFC, any contact sport, you know, Big John McCarthy and, you know, Herb Dean and stuff like that, you know, from the UFC, and, you know, whatever sport you're a fan of, you know, they name referees.
Yeah.
And usually the problem is they would get heat because they're no, you know, always point the finger at the striped shirt guy.
Of
But
course.
maybe that was the idea behind it. I don't know, but at least it's coming back now where they are mentioning the referees.
Yes, I think the once Triple H, you know, got kind of more power and more reigns, it felt like on TV, a lot of people suddenly the ring announcers were talked about a lot more too. The referees, like I think it's an ensemble cast, not just the wrestlers doing their
Mhm.
job in the ring. But was there someone in particular when you saw your name next to them, you said, "Oh God, I got to work with this person"?
Oh, well, and not because of their work, but because of the character and the persona that used to gross me out was the boogeyman. And it was more because of those darn worms. It just grossed me out, man. You know what I mean? It's just like watching him put them in his mouth and, like sopping it up like a piece of spaghetti. And I'm
Oh,
going,
yeah.
you gotta be kidding me, man. There was a couple of times where I came close, like I'm in the ring and I'm like, okay, I got to hold this down, kind of thing. And again, another person only because he had an accompaniment was Jake, the snake. I just hated the snake. It just, again, I guess a ginormous worm.
Yeah, right.
maybe
Yeah.
maybe it's a serpent thing. I don't know. But it used to just freak me out.
Did Jake the Snake ever prank you with that? Because I know the story goes when people are in the shower, he would just hum that snake into the shower and be like, "See ya."
No, well, he didn't prank me in that regard, but he did get me one time where he in the ring where he kind of draped it on me, and I just flipped out, and I thought I hurt the snake. I almost felt bad. I flipped it off and took off, and afterwards I was like, I didn't hurt Damien, did I? He said, no, 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 but it was funny. He goes, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I always saw that every time you'd see a wrestler get that draped on them, or even Bruce Beefcake cutting a wrestler's hair. I always wondered to myself, who's agreeing to this? I guess a
Right.
paycheck's a paycheck, but hey, want to come work for the company? By the way, we're going to cut your hair. And then you can go off and do your regular job after this. Like, what's happening
Hey,
here?
hey, it's part of the deal, and some people will do almost anything.
That's true. That is true. Back to Eddie Guerrero for 1 second, because I love
Mhm.
how you have a picture of him behind you. Can you share any stories beyond what you talked about with Eddie Guerrero? Because everyone loves Eddie Guerrero. People have been influenced by him, and more so now to today's world. People like Sasha Banks and Bailey,
Mhm.
Mercedes Monet now, but they talk about Eddie as such an inspiring figure. And I still talk to children and grown men who love Eddie Guerrero more so than anyone that people put on like a Mount Rushmore. What was your
Mhm.
relationship like with him? And can you share a couple more stories of Eddie?
I wish I have tons of stories. Just him and I in Iraq enjoying, the tribute to the troops stuff and getting together. I have another picture of him back there where we're, just hanging out and we had a special relationship. It was really cool. And he helped me come out of my shell. You know what I mean? He's the one who basically, like I said earlier, was he would ask me for ideas. He would ask me, "Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that?" Especially with the lie, cheat, and steal stuff.
Yeah.
Coming up with ideas on how to do that. So he helped me come out and said, "You know what? Don't be afraid to talk to the guys." And he actually even said it one time in the locker room. He says, "Hey guys, if you got Jimmy as your referee, ask him. He's got that." And I'm like, I'm hoping this doesn't get me heat, kind of thing. But I remember one time there was a tag match, and I want to say it was something like a Burlington, Vermont, or something like that. And it was Eddie and Chavo versus Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas. And during the match, unbeknownst to me, it was a house show, so there's no
Yeah.
cameras there or anything like that. Unbeknownst to me, behind my back, I found out later what happened was one of the bolts that hold for the ring post or the where the rope corner turnbuckle hooks onto the ring post was coming loose, and it was in the corner where Eddie and Chavo were. So Tony Chimmel, who was the ring announcer at the time, sitting there, he grabbed the wrench from under the ring and got up to start tightening the bolt, make sure it doesn't fall off. And Eddie looked down, and this is all behind my back while I'm refereeing the match. Eddie looks at him and goes, "Chimmel, give me the wrench." And I said, "What? Just give me the wrench." And so he had the wrench. He had it tucked in the back of his tights, and you know, he says, "Chavo, bring Charlie over here." So he brings him over to the corner and he says, "Okay, take Jimmy and drag him." So I take Chavo away and I turn my back to Eddie and they start using the wrench as an object and stuff like that. And and I don't know what's going on. I'm just following direction here.
Yeah.
Okay, bring in Shelton to distract the ref. So Shelton comes in illegally. I go to him. They start using blatantly using the wrench as a weapon, and they're selling it not as a finish, but and then they get to a spot where while they're complaining, they end up putting the wrench behind, um, uh, Shelton's, not
Yeah.
Shelton,
Yeah.
Charlie's tights in the back. And they turn around and go, check him, he's got an object, and they're doing this. So I go over and I check him and I find the wrench and I start giving him heck for all this stuff. But like just on the fly, that's what he was great at. He was great at coming up with stuff on the fly. That, like, people talk about it being too scripted sometimes. They were good at just calling it out there.
It always felt like Eddie Guerrero, at least a lot of wrestlers who are influenced by him, have this tendency to, like, let's try something in the ring. If it doesn't work, but at least we tried it, versus let's play A, B, C, D, like let's go by the book. But Eddie Guerrero, I think, he inspired a whole generation of wrestlers. It's incredible to see his influence, and especially this is great to hear Eddie Guerrero stories that we never get to hear them all, because there's so many that we could sit here all day and have an Eddie Guerrero special podcast about him, because he's such a influential wrestler. But while you're a referee, though, are you able to pinpoint when a new wrestler comes in if they have it?
I don't want to say right out of the get-go, yes, but I think over the years you start to get an idea, and I don't want to say you can pinpoint specifically, like, oh, that guy's got it, but you can kind of sense where, hey, because you're in the ring, and the biggest judge is the crowd.
Yeah.
And getting a reaction from the crowd. So you're in the ring and you're going, well, he's getting a reaction. You know what? There is the potential for this person to be so-and-so, and this person to be elevated, and this, not everybody can be world, top guy material.
Yeah.
Because you need there's different levels, as you know, like in every sport. And I compare to hockey, because being up here in Canada, you got your top line, you got your, penalty killers, you've got different roles. And in wrestling is the same thing with the wrestlers. They have different roles to play, but not everybody could be a top guy. But you do kind of sense some potential in some guys when you see them, especially certain ones that you go, wow.
Right. I bet. Unfortunately, though, you are part of history. On May 23rd, 1999, the unfortunate passing of Owen Hart. You were assigned to a match between Owen Hart and The Godfather. That match obviously didn't happen. The unfortunate passing of Owen Hart. Now, take me through that day, because obviously I've heard stories from a million different people about this day, as in, Owen Hart was feeling nervous. He wasn't feeling nervous. Did you have any interaction with Owen before that match that day?
The only interaction before the match was just to get, the match. Sit down and hear what they were going to do and what was going to happen. And I wasn't there, like, for the so-called, what was going on with the, if there was a rehearsal ahead of time, whether they did one before time to see how it went. But, because I was busy doing other stuff. I had other duties as well, like on the ring crew and in the back and stuff like that with production team. So, I didn't get a sense of anything out of the ordinary. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. If that makes any kind of sense.
Yes. Because again, there's been documentaries, there's been specials, interviews, obviously, of that day, and everyone has a different story. So I don't think anyone's ever been able to pinpoint what happened. It was a very unfortunate accident, but everyone's looking, I guess, to figure out why did this happen. Now, the story goes is, as you're in the ring while Owen Hart unfortunately passes away, falling from the rafters. Now, what is that like? Because you're in the ring, that happens, and then they want to continue the show. Yeah. Where's your mindset at?
See, here's the thing, though. Yes, I was in the ring because prior to this match was a hardcore match. So I was out there, helping the team clear out some of the debris out of the ring that was used in the hardcore match. And I was holding the top rope and I was kicking stuff out and I was moving towards that corner, that dreaded corner. And I heard people on the screen was playing the pre-recorded interview he did. I think it was with Kevin Kelly, if I'm not mistaken. But there's the promo on the screen there. So I'm kind of half watching the screen, kicking the stuff out of the ring as I'm facing that direction. And I hear the crowd screaming and I don't know what's going on. And like almost instantaneously, I felt something very lightly brush by, and the top rope that I was holding flung out of my hand, came back jam my fingers, and I'm like, and I thought the rope had snapped because it can't happen. WWE used real rope, not the steel cable stuff. So I'm like kind of ducking and holding my hand, going, "What the heck was that?" And I look down, and I see Owen, and I'm like, and I didn't know. I couldn't put two and two together. You know what I mean? You're confused. You don't know what's. And I called out a couple of times, nothing, no response, and I just started flipping out, saying, "We need help. We need help. We need help." I stood back while they did their thing, and they took him out, and I followed, and I was out back, and I watched them load him into an ambulance. And at the time, I was a smoker, so somebody handed me a cigarette, and I was kind of like shaking and smoking a cigarette and stuff like that. And John D'Amico is one of the production guys that comes up and goes, "They want you to go to the hospital and get checked out." I go, what? Just go, make them happy, stuff like that. So I went to he took me there. They checked me out, and I called my, my fiance, at the time, my wife now, told her what was going on. But I still didn't know the thing until the nurse came in and said, "Are you the fellow they brought in with the wrestler who fell?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Oh, have they told you anything yet?" I said, "No." And then that's when they told me, and I just, it was just rough. And then, I still don't remember leaving the hospital to this day. I know John got me. We went back to the hotel. He's telling me all this stuff. Packed up my stuff and drove to St. Louis. I still don't remember all that until the next day when I got to TV the next day in St. Louis. See, I didn't know they continued the show. I didn't know any of that stuff until we got to St. Louis, and I, talked to certain people and talked to JR and talked to Taker, and they were like, "If you need anything, you come to us," that kind of thing. And I didn't find out how close he was to me until I talked to Jerry Lawler, who told me he saw the last maybe 20 feet of the fall and thought he was going to, that I was going to be a more unfortunate part of this tragedy.
Right. So, as you mentioned, you don't remember until the next day of what actually happened to you. And obviously, you just mentioned it, things could have gone much dire for you,
Yeah.
depending on where you were standing.
And I started feeling guilty after, because, King told me that, and I felt lucky, but at the same time, here's a family who lost a father, a husband, a son. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I felt guilty, thinking that I was lucky that I made it out of this. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Yeah.
No, survivor remorse. I understand completely. The fact though that here you are now to tell the story. I think that to me is something was watching you that day and said to you, you have more story to tell here on Earth. So I'm glad you're still here with us, but unfortunately we lost Owen Hart that day, and the position of continuing the show. I've talked to many different people, and they've all been like, we were kind of like, in a way, kind of slightly forced to continue, as in like a guilt trip. But obviously you weren't there, so your experience is completely different from the rest of the bunch. And the next day they had the Owen Hart special on Monday Night Raw, which is still one of the greatest achievements, I think, in WWE, of pulling this off and having a show and everyone there performing, because you never hear a bad story about Owen Hart. You never hear a bad story about Owen Hart. The ribs, I can imagine, would piss you off at the time, but the fact that he was creating memories for the last a lifetime with laughter and joy, I think, is what we need to remember more so than what happened on one particular day, on one particular moment. So you got any good Owen Hart rib stories? Because I know he's done a job on many people.
Yeah, I've even got caught once or twice. I remember one time at a hotel, I get this call in my room at like 2:30 in the morning, saying, "Hi, this is the front desk. Your credit card has been declined. You have to come down and straighten this out." I said, "Pardon me, can we do this in the morning?" "Nope, has to be done right now, because if we don't, we're gonna have to, have you leave the hotel." I go, "Oh my goodness!" So I get up, I get dressed, and I go down. And I said, "Hi, I'm here to settle the issue with my room." And they're like, "Pardon me? Your name is?" No, there isn't a problem here. I found out the next day that it was Owen just having fun. But one of the best Owen ribs ever was when he. Do you remember the hog pen match that
Oh
Henry Godwin had
yeah,
on?
well, Henry
So,
O'Gowan and Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
yeah, so they had a hog pen match, and obviously they had to rent the hogs, the thing. So the guy showed up at the building with the animals. And he says, "Where do I put these? Where do you want these animals?" And Owen happened to be right near when they came in. He says, "Hey, if they come this way, I'll show you where they go." So they huddled him into Vince's office.
Oh my God.
So man, Vince is in the production meeting with the production crew. You know what I mean? They're getting ready for the show. Uh, so after the meeting, Vince walks into his office. He sees all the hogs in there and stuff like that. Right away, he turns around. He goes in the hallway and he's like, "Oh, Owen!" He knew. It's like he knew right away that. Anyways, tremendous.
Now that's a good story.
Yeah.
I love the fact that Vince is just like, damn it, I know it's Owen. I love him, but I hate him so much.
He knew it. It's like he knew it right away.
That is amazing. That is outstanding. That's hilarious. Now, let's talk more about other things that might affect referees. The Montreal Screwjob is one of those moments that I think we'll talk about until we all are off this earth and living on Mars. But yet, then what was the heat on referees? Because the Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Vince, Earl Hebner dynamic is of its own entity. But there are wrestlers and referees are probably affected by this as well, because now, is there a consensus that even wrestlers can't trust all referees in this business?
I didn't sense any of that. The thing that we were worried about as referees were, obviously it goes through your mind. What would you do if you were put in that position? You would have to do, and after talking to Earl felt bad. Of course he did, but at the end of the day, you work for someone. You either do the job he wants you to do, or you're not going to end up working for him. So he did what he had to do, what he felt he had to do, and talking to him, it was never a situation where, he again. Apparently, he had a conversation with Bret the day before.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Did Bret have a sense that maybe something was up or anything like that? I don't know. But Earl was, trust me, he had to battle with this in his head for a long time. And for the rest of us, we didn't feel the same thing Earl did, and I don't think that there was a distrust from the talent to the other referees, because this was a special circumstance.
Right.
But it also smartened everybody up to, hey, this is Vince's company. He's going to do what he wants to do, regardless.
That is true. That is true. So I guess that's good to hear, because I've talked to wrestlers who weren't actually, involved in the Montreal Screwjob, but were like, this affected me personally because I feel like if they could do it to Bret, they can do it to me. And then, but in reality, it's like it depends on what side of the table you land on with the conversation. But the idea is, boss asks employee to do something, you might have to do it.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to.
Exactly. And, hey, again, credit to Earl for doing what he did. I don't envy having to be in that position. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But, hey, he handled it like a champ, and the professional he has been always.
Let's talk about bumps, though, because referees are notorious for taking bumps in matches. What is your worst bump and injury?
Oh, believe it or not, this is going to sound weird, but it's WrestleMania 4.
Really?
Yes. Because it wasn't a, big, crazy looking bump or anything like this. Let me put it to you this way. I have taken the 747 by the One Man Gang, which was the first ref bump I ever took on television. Yes. I have gone through a table during a hardcore match with Bad News Brown and Randy Macho Man Savage.
Nice.
But at WrestleMania 4, during the tournament, the Intercontinental match with Brutus the Barber Beefcake and the Honky Tonk Man, there's a spot where Brutus gets Honky in the sleeper. Jimmy Hart pops up on the apron. So I go to him and try to convince him to get down. And when I turn my back, he waffles me with the megaphone. Now, he doesn't hurt me. But when I take my face plant, my hands slide out, my chin hits the canvas. And because we're right by the ropes, that's the hardest part of the ring, the stiffest. it hits the sweet spot. Let's put it that way. And boom, I am out. And that's it. Lights out. And, people are trying to shake me to get me up. In watching it back, I see, the other refs helping me back. And they thought I was dead weighting them, playing a rib on them, and Danny Davis has me by the back of my pulling up my belt in the back, and my feet are dragging and stuff like that. And even when I got to the back, Danny gave me like, why were you dead weighting us out there? And I said, what are you talking about? He said, you were dead weight. I said, I don't remember. He said, come on. I said, Danny, I was out. He says, you were actually, I said, yeah. So as far as injury wise, that wasn't the worst, but as far cognitively, like I knocked myself out, but there's other stuff where I don't know, you can't see it here on the thing, but my thumb looks a little bigger here, especially in the joint. That thumb ended up down here one time in a match. I was sliding out of the ring, getting chased by the Legion of Doom, and the thumb ended up back here because it caught the ring apron. And I ended up finishing the match, believe it or not, counting left-handed. And when I got to the back, they said, what's wrong with your thumb? And it was like, oh my
goodness. It's dangling off my hand. That's what's wrong with it.
Yeah. There's a lot more to that afterwards, like me, the idiot, not thinking, because that happened in Toronto and it was an afternoon show. And of course, back then this was before I got married and used to hang with the guys. So I met the guys up at the shop. We used to call it, had a coffee and stuff like that. They said, let's go see a movie. And here I am with this. Anyways.
So you kept going throughout the day with this thumb that clearly needed medical attention?
Yeah. And then after the movie, you see my thumb looking like a football. He said, oh, okay, maybe I do need to go get this looked at.
I was going to say, what movie was worth for your thumb to be permanently like this forever?
I wish I remember what the movie was.
No shit.
Yes, yeah, because I can't remember for the life of me. All I remember is this big thing, and they said, "Oh, you gotta go."
Oh my god! Well, I guess that movie wasn't worth remembering, but your thumb certainly is still sitting there on your hand. But you've been
it makes it harder eating popcorn that way. That's for sure.
Just dump it. Just dump the thing on your head, sir. What are you doing? You're making a mess. Well, look at my thumb.
Yeah,
sir. But
I see.
There are so many matches you've been involved with, but is there one or two that really jump out at you as like, I was involved with that, I had a hand in this, this is important to me?
Obviously, getting to, just like the wrestlers, getting to work a main event at WrestleMania. In WrestleMania 24, Edge versus Undertaker, especially considering that I wasn't originally scheduled to referee that match. Because during that time, the big thing, they had the TLC matches.
Yeah.
And I got sort of designated as the TLC guy. I was kind of involved in pretty much almost all of those matches. So that's when I was scheduled for WrestleMania. And then about 2 weeks before, Edge catches me in the locker room and says, Jimmy, can I talk to you for a second? I said, absolutely. I said, what's up? He says, Taker and I have been talking. We want you to referee our match at WrestleMania. He said, that's awesome, but I'm scheduled to do the other one. He says, oh, I'm sure we could take care of that. He says, are you okay? I said, are you kidding me? I'd love to, and then run into Taker later. I said, I talked to Edge and stuff like that. He says, I said, I'll do my best for you. He says, and Taker's like, we know you will. That's why we want you in there with us. And I was like, oh my God. And of course, Taker's our locker room leader, so man, it's one thing to be to be assigned, but to be requested by those two guys made it even more special, especially considering Edge being from my neck of the woods. Here's a guy at WrestleMania 6 who, as he put it to me, was in the crowd watching me referee at WrestleMania 6, and now I'm in the ring with him, and I'm like, dude, this is the coolest thing for me, not for you. You know what I
mean? He's thinking full circle for him. You're thinking this is outstanding for me. You're both very enjoying the moment, living in it. That's amazing to hear, because Undertaker, again, you brought it up, he is the locker room leader. I think till the end of time, he'll always be respected as one of the greatest wrestlers, performers of all time. So again, what was that like, having his blessing of, I request you, not you're assigned, I'm requesting you. We're going to get you off what you're assigned to do because I want you.
To say it was an honor is an understatement. it was the most amazing feeling in the world. And of course, here, the day before, they're going over the match. We're in Orlando and the whole bit. And then that's when you find out, we talked ref bumps earlier, Taker says, we want to bump you, Jimmy, blah, blah, blah. Are you okay with taking a big boot? I said, hold on a sec here. WrestleMania 24, main event, Edge versus Undertaker. I'm taking a big boot from the dead man. Sign me up. I'm all in. And he started laughing, it was kind of, but man, it's just an incredible feeling. But I was so nervous that the night before, again, you talk about, I'm late at night, I'm kind of wandering the hotel, because at WrestleMania, they book the hotel. It's only WWE people in the entire hotel. So, and I'm kind of like wandering around going, boy, I got this big match tomorrow. I better not mess it up and all this stuff. But the funny part too was regarding the bump. This bump, you're getting kicked getting the big boot from Taker. You're out of the match. You're not coming back from this.
Yeah.
He says, we need another ref to come down and for the finish. Who do we get? And everybody looked at each other at the same time and kind of said, Charles. Because he's the only one who could make that 75-yard run down the ramp.
Yes. Dude, that man, there are so many videos and GIFs of him online of him running his heart out everywhere he goes. That man, cardio, very intense, very intense. Yes. I was actually at WrestleMania 24, so I got to see that amazing, that event was great. Floyd Money Mayweather versus Big Show, the Money in the Bank match you're talking about. It was awesome. Edge and Taker obviously was main event, and I believe that's Edge's. Actually, he main evented again, so that was the first time he ever main evented at WrestleMania. That was Undertaker's probably second, maybe, which is crazy to think. Undertaker, only 2 times.
And what I've heard recently, and I don't know if how Edge, I think, said this, that there was talk of Edge ending the streak, and Edge didn't want to be the one to end the streak. He didn't feel like it was the right time.
Well, it was not the right time when the streak ended with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 30 either, but, we
can all debate for another day,
we can all argue because how did you feel about that? Let's talk about that for a second. Since Undertaker is so popular. The fact that WrestleMania 30, the ending is Daniel Bryan beating Randy Orton, Batista, World Championship, holding belt. Yes. No. The shell shock moment of Taker streak ending will forever be the moment we all would go back and go, oh, God, I remember where I was. What were you feeling like? Did the streak need to ever end?
I don't think it needed to, but I get that at the time they were trying to make Brock the big star. But you brought up an interesting point. That was the same WrestleMania where Daniel Bryan cashed in and should have been the moment that everybody talked about from that WrestleMania. But the moment that stole them, the biggest highlight to everybody was the streak ended. So did that in a way hurt Daniel Bryan's achievement that night? And I think in a way it kind of did. As great as it was, as great of a pop as it was when it happened, still people keep going back to that WrestleMania talking about the end of the streak, which kind of overshadowed everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the build up for the Yes movement and getting us there to WrestleMania. Bryan being Triple H early in the night, but then the streak is broken, and then suddenly we're all sitting there shell-shocked. There was a women's match after that, then the main event, and everyone's like, I remember just sitting there on my couch like, what? What happened? What are we doing here? But let's talk about your podcast, though, because you have a podcast, and I know you have road stories to the end of time, and I know sharing them is something that most people are always going to listen to. So what's that experience like, and how did you start this?
Well, the podcast, it wasn't me who started. It was you're talking the Roughing It Up?
Yeah, Roughing It Up.
Yeah, it was actually Brian RJ and Brian who started the podcast, and it was just them two. And then all of a sudden, that Brian buzzes me and says,
buzzes you. Sure, we'll put that back in.
No, he buzzes me. He says, hey, you want to be a guest on my podcast? I said, yeah, man, I'd love to. That'd be cool. So we do the podcast, and then all of a sudden they got, hey, do you want to join and become a permanent member of this thing? And I said, yeah, that's kind of cool. Let's do it. And that's where it came. Now, like, I've done it for a few months now, but it was originally just Brian and RJ, but now I've joined the team, and I'm cool with it.
That's outstanding.
It's a lot of fun.
And I also know you recap some shows with my good friend Issa, the Demon Diva, and
Hmm.
she is one of the greatest people of all time. I was in Puerto Rico with her for about 3-4 days for WWE Backlash, and we went everywhere together. We traveled. I've known her for about 10, 15 years now. Great person. So I know that you guys are talking randomly on shows, so I just wanted to throw that out there as well because I think
Oh
she's
yeah,
the best
yeah,
people in the world.
yeah. On the Wrestling Inc. Her and I and Justin Labar
Yep.
kind of recap AEW Dynamite on Wednesday nights, and yeah, she's awesome. She's a lot of fun. Um, and I also do a Monday night one after Raw as well too. So it's usually again with Justin and Jack Farmer, which I lovingly nicknamed as Triple J.
I know that man. Every time I see him, he's always in the most fanciest suits ever. So good for you, Jack. I'm gonna keep on wearing
And that
my.
hair.
I
And
wish. I wish.
I
You know what I
know.
mean?
Talk to me. I have the Greek curse, as I call it, where I grow hair everywhere except where I want
I think we have the same problem.
it.
Though, let's talk about something again. In 2009, you released by the WWE. What was the reason you were given? Because I know so many people are given financial reasons. They're given everything underneath the sun. What was your reason?
Well, here's what happened. Like right before my release, I was starting to transition into more of a backstage role. Like working at TVs and stuff like that. But my father got sick, unfortunately with cancer. So I had taken some time off. I hadn't been going in at all. There was a few months there where I had to look after family.
Of course,
Um, as much as I adored the industry and loved being a part of the business, my family came first always.
always.
So my mom needed the help. So I helped my mother and stuff like that, and I got the call in January of '09, and it was John Laurinaitis saying, considering the circumstances, we know you're dealing with a lot right now, but we're looking to cut back on things. And since you aren't here, you're one of the names that popped up. And but the door will always be open. Whenever you decide, you feel like coming back. But for now, we're gonna pay you for 90 days. But unfortunately, we're gonna release you from your obligations and stuff like that. I said, well, I appreciate you calling, stuff like that, whatever. Blah, blah, blah. Then the 90 days came up and my father had passed away and stuff like that. And just all those years on the road, it made me think, been away from family. I've missed birthdays. I've missed weddings. I've missed so many things from being on the road. Maybe it is time for me to just move on and move elsewhere, and I didn't really lose that relationship with wrestling later on, but just the travel was the main reason why I decided that maybe it was time for me not to go back.
And obviously, family, you brought up in my book as well. Family always comes first, no matter what it is. But as a performer like yourself on the road constantly, you mentioned you're missing celebrations, birthdays, monumental moments in life for everybody. So, was it an easy transition to suddenly be off the road to be home with your family? Because suddenly the roles are different. You're home all the time now.
Yeah, I think it was harder for them because now they have me around all the time. They have to deal with me being the guy going, okay, what do I do now? What do I do now? I'm not. This is new territory because at one point the schedule there was where I would leave on Fridays, usually in the afternoon or something like that, and I wouldn't come home till Wednesday. So that means I would come home Wednesday. I'd have Wednesday afternoon, evening usually because I'd try to get the earliest flight home, obviously.
Yeah.
You'd have all day Thursday, and then you're leaving on Friday afternoon or early evening again. So you're basically home in a day and a half to 2 days at the most, if that. No, less than 2 days. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And now you're home 24/7. So it's probably harder on them dealing with you being there, being the guy like, what can I do? What can I do? You're looking for stuff to do. But the transition wasn't easy. But then I ran into a young man by the name of Ardo Ocal at a local show here. And he used to do a show in right after wrestling, it was called back in the day, which was on the Score here in Canada, which aired the WWE programming at the time,
Yep.
and on Sirius XM and he invited me to be a part of the show. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. So it started there, and then it morphed into Aftermath, and it became a part of their television lineup up here, and that's when I got into quote unquote the broadcasting world, where I became an analyst.
Oh my, yes, it is hard sometimes to be biased but not biased, be kind but not kind, share your thoughts but not actually really share them. So how was that? What was that like? Because you're with these people for so long, 22 years with some of the characters, some of the wrestlers, and then you're supposed to be saying like, "Oh, that was a terrible match with so and so that you were just sharing lunch with a couple of years ago."
Right. That was the toughest part I had to deal with. Like you said, you've known these people for so long, you've got to work with them, and then you see something that they do that you go, "Whoa, why did they do that?" And I even see it to this day sometimes, so with some of the talent, and I go, "You know what? You can do it in a professional manner and just be honest."
Yes.
That's all. And that's what I try to do. I try to be honest without throwing anybody under the bus or stuff like that, except, every once in a while, sometimes I go a little bit overboard. You can, because some stuff frustrates me. But other than that, you try to be as professional as possible and make it an honest critique. And you're not, and here's the misconception. People think when you do that, you're tearing down. No, I'm not tearing down. I'm pointing out stuff that I'd like to see improved because I want to see this business grow and be better.
Yeah, I agree because I know you in the morning. I see your videos on Twitter where you are, on your couch, you have your rock foam Brahma Bull behind you, and you're sharing your thoughts and feelings about professional wrestling or things in general. And I can imagine, you're sharing your thoughts, but at the same time, we just kind of brought it up where it's very difficult to fine line to toss someone underneath the bus or be slightly critical, but also praising. It's a very strange world to
Mhm.
try to be mean but nice.
No, yeah, and you can critique without having to praise as well.
Yes.
A critique is a critique. You know what I mean? It's all in how you present it. If you go out there, oh, that was the absolute drizzling. You know what I mean? Anybody could do that. But if you offer a reason why you thought something didn't work or something should have been done differently, there you go. Don't just say that sucked.
There's a lot of YouTube videos I think that start with that sucked,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and unfortunately those people get like 16 views. But I gotta say it has been an honor and a privilege sitting here today with Jimmy Korderas. One again, like I said at the top of the show, one of my favorite referees of all time, and we will always praise his name along with referee wrestlers like Tim White and Earl Hebner and Mike Chioda. These are the people that I absolutely adore and will always praise. Before we wrap up, I mentioned Tim White's name, and you gave me reactions. So Tim White being inducted to the Hall of Fame this past year, I think, was an honor and a privilege for him, and obviously all referees, to show that you are part of the program. Tim White, what was your relationship like with him? Because I feel like he is one of those people that everyone, again, just like Owen Hart, says great things about.
No, he was absolutely awesome. Timmy was he was, again. I was blessed to be mentored by some great names. Like you mentioned Timmy White, you mentioned both Hebners, uh, guys like that, and just Timmy was so giving. And here's a guy. Let me put it to you this way: Andre the Giant. He traveled with him and made sure that everything was cool with Andre. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Andre, didn't. If he liked you, he liked you, but he loved Timmy, and that speaks volumes right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I got along with Timmy so well. Again, he was a mentor, but he was also a good friend.
Good to
And
hear.
I can, yeah. And when you talk about being honest, he would always be honest with you, and but never, you know what I mean? Like if he saw something in a match you did, if he's watching, like like you do, he would offer advice. Hey, when this happened here, think about positioning yourself over here, especially for TV, because you have to position yourself as a referee differently at TV than you do at house shows.
Mm-hmm.
It's a completely different animal. He was awesome. What can I say? He was awesome.
Outstanding. I'm so glad that he was in the Hall of Fame, and I hope other
Yeah.
referees like yourself, and I mentioned Earl Hebner, Mike Chioda, both Hebners. Like, I hope that someday, Jim Johnston, the timekeepers. I think all these people who are part of the building process of where we are in today's wrestling world need to be praised and remembered. And I feel like all of you need to go in the Hall of Fame someday. So someday you get to hear that lovely song, Living in the Hall of Fame, when you walk out and get to give a 35-minute speech. And then they go, stop talking, get off. But all in all, Jimmy Korderas, it's been an honor and a privilege talking to you today on Tank Out. I've been Steve Fall. He's Jimmy Korderas. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.